Hello there, everybody. Welcome back. I'm here to be talking about Oppenheimer. Now, Oppenheimer is the newest film from Christopher Nolan, and it's based on the true story of J. Robert Oppenheimer, as he is known as the father of the atomic bomb, and it basically goes through his life in certain aspects, like, for example, being at university, and of course, making, being an integral figure in making the atomic bomb, which was infamously later used on the Hiroshima and Nagasaki during the end of World War II. So this movie was very hyped for many reasons. For one, it's the newest Christopher Nolan movie, and he is one of those few directors that it's argued that he has never made a bad movie. And it's crazy to have that type of reputation, because there's very few directors where the majority of critics, audiences, so forth, agree that the movies that he makes are either, phenomenal, excellent masterpieces, or even at the worst scale, good or average. He's never, went into that bad category. And he's like one of those few directors that, besides that, his films, for the most part, do extremely well. And the main reason for that was still one of the most beloved comic book trilogies, and said to be one of the best comic book trilogies, which is the Dark Knight trilogy, which he directed all three of those movies. And even movies since then, like his movies before that, like Insomnia, Memento, The Prestige, like stuff like that, before the full trilogy came out, were well received and really, good movies following. But his movies, like in the height of that prime, like Inception, Interstellar came out after the full trilogy, Dunkirk, like they all benefited. He gained like a huge audience, and he's one of those few directors where he can pull a full audience to go watch his movies, which is such a rare thing nowadays for a director. Like you slap the director's name and they're pretty much as recognizable as like the stars. And speaking of stars, for this movie, you have Cillian Murphy, who plays Oppenheimer, the titular character in the film. Robert Downey Jr. is there as a big supporting cast member. Emily Blunt plays Oppenheimer's wife. Matt Damon's in it as the main general guy who helps oversee the project that they call the Manhattan Project, which was made to test to see if this bomb could work, because there was a lot of legitimate fears that when the bomb went off, it could destroy or damage the atmosphere, which could lead to the end of the world. So there was lots of stress and craziness in it. And speaking of this movie, like, besides a phenomenal cast, even side characters like Jack Quaid from The Boys, Alden Ehrenreich, young Han Solo, and Rami Malek, Gary Oldman, like so many like Oscar-winning, high-quality talent type of actors show up for this movie for like a few scenes or whatever, because that's how terrific of a director Nolan is, that people are tripping over themselves to want to be in his movies. And that's why I was so excited and hyped for it. And luckily, I was not let down, because I wouldn't say it's like my favorite Nolan movie. It's not like up there with Inception or The Dark Knight, but I found this movie to be terrific in a lot of ways. And a lot of the reasons about it is it's so, like, it's one of those few movies that I sat through it, and when you see people talk about how it's, like, to describe it, like, intense or a lot to process, and there's so much there, it really is, because after watching it, I was in such a shock by what I watched. Like, I had to, like, I was kind of a bit confused in a lot of aspects, because there was so much story there. There was not a missed beat for this 3-hour runtime. I was doing research, and I was really invested in the making of this bomb, and only Nolan can really get you invested, because I know this is based off of, I believe, the novel called American Prometheus or something, and I never read the book or really heard of it, to be fair, but this was terrific, because I just was so, like, because I love history. I'm a pretty big history guy. I love watching those type of movies and stuff, so this was pretty much right up my alley. But one of my main problems with the film, and I'm not trying to really knock it off of this, but I do have to mention, is that it could be kind of boring in parts, and it could be pretty hard to follow. Like, for example, me having to look up more about it and research it a bit more, because I was just a bit confused about some parts of the film after watching it. so that could be a little negative for the film because, and the marketing I will say was terrific because, as I mentioned in my Barbie review, it was kind of meshed together with Barbie to make Barbenheimer, which is a hilarious trend, and I kind of dived in a little bit on why that, started and all that in that review. So if you're interested in how I saw it come about and all, check that video out. But it made the movie seem like it would be some type of epic action type thriller about the making of this bomb and all that. And while the bomb does play a crucial, big plot point, there's so much more to that. It's really about the character, the person himself, as the title would suggest. So temper your expectations going in, because it isn't just about the making of the bomb. Like when the whole bomb sequence happens, I think there's another 45 minutes afterwards, I believe, with two separate hearings going on two different characters. And another thing about this movie that I'm trying to not really dive into spoiler territory, but another thing I really found interesting about this movie is it does something similar to like Pulp Fiction, where it isn't told in chronological order. Like for the most part, it sort of is, but there are parts that are like black and white that jump to different time frames and time periods, and then in color, and there's different moments that aren't in order. Like for example, the last part of the film, you see pretty early on of the film, so you see it from a different perspective. So they do sections like that where you see stuff from different perspectives and different angles. And so if that kind of irritates you, I do have to mention that the film is not told in chronological order in a lot of aspects. So I do have to mention that. But I personally thought for the movie it worked, but it did add to the bit of the confusion for me. But like I said, the performances were terrific throughout. It's beautifully shot. I had no problem really with the musical score mix, because I know a lot of Nolan complaints is that the music is sometimes way too loud and it's hard to really hear the actors really communicate and talk. Me personally, maybe it was the theater I was in because I did see it in IMAX, but I didn't really have that much of an issue with that. I was able to hear everyone pretty clearly and it worked out well. The score was also terrific. How it's shot and all, like I was saying, looks great. The performance is good. The story had me really enthralled and fascinated in a lot of aspects, even though at some points I do say it kind of dragged. And I'm not gonna lie, some parts were kind of weird and kind of like, why was that here? But these are just like kind of small nitpicks, but this was just stuff that I observed watching it. But again, well-made film, well acted, and sheds a light on a really crucial, important part of history that could still maybe have effects, since, as we know, nuclear war and threats all over the country is still kind of a big concern now, because everyone and their mom has a nuclear bomb at this point, except even more powerful than the ones from back then during the time of this movie. So it still is pretty relevant in what the story it's telling, and that's another good part about this movie. But again, those were my thoughts on Oppenheimer. Again, thank you all so much for watching. It means so much to me. If you want to hit the subscribe button and the bell as well to get notified of when I upload, that would be great. And please leave a comment down below. Did you love this movie? Did you not really like the movie? I would really like to know your thoughts. Again, thank you all so much for watching. It means a lot to me, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Bye!